Every morning at 6:03 a.m., Daniel Mercer brewed his coffee, sat by the window, and thought of nothing, not out of peace, but out of fear, because 3 weeks ago, he discovered the truth: his thoughts created physical matter. It started with a headache. He imagined a cold compress on his forehead, and seconds later, a damp cloth materialized in his hands, ice still glistening. He laughed it off. Then he thought of his missing keys, and they appeared on the kitchen counter, frost forming around them. That's when he stopped laughing. At first, he tested it carefully. A pen, a book he'd lost years ago, a photograph of his late father, smiling in a pose Daniel had never seen. Each object appeared instantly, perfectly real, down to the smell of old paper or the weight of metal. But when he imagined a rose for his neighbor's birthday, it bloomed in his palm, thorns and all, and bled when he pricked his finger. The flower was alive, and so was the pain. He realized the rules: only thoughts held with absolute clarity and emotional intensity manifested. Doubt dissolved the object, fear twisted it, and desire could build a world or destroy it. 4 days, he tried to control it. He meditated, he wrote lists, he avoided thinking of anything dangerous. But the mind is not a vault, it leaks. One sleepless night, haunted by memories of his abusive childhood, he pictured his father's face in rage, and in the corner of his room, a shadow formed. Not a memory, a man, solid, breathing, smiling with that old, cruel twist of the lips. Daniel screamed. The figure vanished, but the floorboards where it stood were scorched. Panicked, he packed a bag and fled to a remote cabin in the Rockies, miles from anyone. No phone, no internet, just silence and snow. He practiced emptiness. He stared at walls. He whispered mantras. For 10 days, nothing appeared. He dared to hope he was free. Then, on the 11th night, he dreamed of his mother, gentle, humming as she baked bread. He woke to the scent of cinnamon and yeast. On the rough wooden table sat a still warm loaf, steam curling from its crust. He broke it open. Inside, carved into the dough in perfect script, "You can't hide from what you are." That's when he understood. It wasn't just his thoughts. The universe had noticed. He began noticing patterns, clouds shaped like equations, trees growing in spirals matching his neural pathways, birds flocking in rhythms that echoed his heartbeat. Reality itself was resonating with his mind. He wasn't creating objects, he was tuning existence. And others were listening. One morning, he found a note nailed to his door written in his own handwriting, but he hadn't written it. "Stop imagining us, Daniel, we're starting to feel real." He looked up. In the forest, dozens of figures stood among the pines. Some were people he'd once known, others were strangers. All had his eyes. He ran back inside, slammed the door, and pressed his hands to his skull, screaming, Stop thinking." But the mind rebels in silence. In the void, fear rushed in, and fear imagined monsters. The cabin windows shattered inward, not from wind, from claws. He curled into a corner, tears freezing on his cheeks, and did the only thing left. He imagined nothing. Not emptiness, not void, but a single, pure concept: release. The world went white. When he opened his eyes, he stood in a vast, empty plain under a blank sky. No sun, no wind, just smooth, gray ground stretching forever. And before him, a mirror. In it, he saw not himself, but a version of him wearing a lab coat, holding a glowing neural headset. The reflection spoke, "Subject 73, you've finally stabilized the simulation." Daniel staggered back. "Simulation? You're not creating matter," the reflection said calmly. "You're remembering it. Every human is a quantum echo of a higher dimensional self. Your thoughts are just data streams leaking from your true reality into this training construct." The twist wasn't that thoughts created matter. Matter was just the shadow of forgotten thought. And he'd just woken up. But as the reflection smiled, Daniel noticed something horrifying. The lab coat bore a name tag, Daniel Mercer. He wasn't the subject. He was the scientist. And the simulation was his own mind, fractured after an experiment gone wrong. He hadn't escaped his cabin. He'd never left his body, lying in a hospital bed, brain wired to a machine, dreaming of freedom while his real self drowned in coma. The final line echoed in the void, spoken by both of him at once. "If I stop imagining you, do you cease to exist?" Silence. Then, a single thought, fragile as snow: "Try me."